Okay, perfect. So, until the last class, we had started with the methods of contraception. And of course, we had discussed about different population explosion and so on, and methods to prevent and all related to population explosion and such. So, then we had come to this methods of contraception, which included natural methods, barrier methods, and in barrier methods, most important ones we had seen was the male and female condoms, and the chemical methods. We had looked at them as these creams and jellies and like different formulations which contains these spermicides. So that was chemical method. And then the fourth type of the methods of contraception was intrauterine devices, where we had looked at the inert intrauterine devices, which were made up of different like metal compounds like barium sulfate or even stainless steel, which are available in different shapes. And the example was Lycus loop and the copper T. I hope you remember. I guess we had finished. Yeah, correct. Copper T we had finished, and the hormone releasing IUDs. Copper T is shown here in this diagram. This one, which is T shaped, made up of copper wire, and that is why it is called copper T. And this multi load 375 was like long lasting uh, device like copper T, and it needs to be replaced like after a long period of time, more than 3 to 5 years. That is usually within 7 to 8 years. That was like that needs a replacement. That is multi-load 375, and copper 380 was even higher. So these were the different methods of contraception that we had looked at. The next method that we are going to look at, and one of the most important as well, is the contraceptives. Now, this specifically refers to the pills, contraceptive pills, and so on. So these are the devices that prevent the conception or pregnancy without interfering with the reproductive health of the individuals. Uh, and this specifically refers to the sexual intercourse of the individuals. These are more user friendly, comfortable to use, no side effects if it is taken in proper dosage and with physician's consent. But again, there are always few side effects with respect to certain doses, because the whole base study of the individual is not always done, and the medicines are just prescribed. But otherwise, ideally, in ideal situations, they do not have any side effects. They also do not interfere with the sexual drive or the desire or the sexual act of the user. So these contraceptives, they do not really interfere in any of these. Like for example, these copper T like devices, or even for that matter the condoms, they create a physical discomfort. Putting and taking out this copper T is again a discomforting procedure. Same is the case with vaginal diaphragm, cervical cap, and so on. So these are not really, I mean, though they are widely used, but they are sometimes discomforting in either of these cases, that is sexual drive, sexual desire, or the sexual act. And that is why these contraceptive pills, they are like very user friendly as well as comfortable. So usually the oral administration of small doses of either the pills of progesterone or the combination of progesterone estrogen, that is being used. So oral contraceptive pills, depending on what is the situation, what is the stage of that menstrual cycle, and so on, usually the combination of progesterone and estrogen is being used as oral contraceptive. Otherwise, it can also be only progesterone. Progestine refers to the synthetic, that is chemically designed analogs or similar molecules to progesterone. That's why they are called as progestins. Uh, so these are the two possible combinations in case of oral contraceptive pills. And like I had mentioned, this is the most commonly used method by women these days. That is this oral pills or oral contraceptive pills. Now, Because it is used in the form of tablets, that's why they are called as pills, and they are taken orally for 21 days, starting from the 5th day of the menstrual cycle, and are repeated again after a gap of 7 days. That is only during the menstruation phase. These are stopped, and after the menstruation stops, again these pills are being taken. So there are usually this pack of 21 itself in a one strip, and then they are being taken one by one over the next cycle of the menstrual cycle. These pill act in 4 ways to inhibit the conception. So there are possible mechanisms that they can act. It can be either only one way, or it can be combination of the ways. Depends on the dosage that is being given. Because it contains both progesterone and estrogen mostly, it can act into any of these ways to inhibit the conception. That is either inhibition of the motility and the secretory activity of the fallopian tube. Now the moment this is affected, obviously the ovum will not be passed down to the uterus, so it is ultimately affecting the conception. Inhibition of ovulation itself, so ovule is not coming out of the ovary, and it is not stimulated at all, so that way it can inhibit the conception. Changes in the cervical mucus, not allowing the passage of the sperm. So even after sexual intercourse, the inseminated sperm or the semen will not allow the sperms to travel upward in the uterus. That is because of the changes in the cervical mucus composition. Alteration in the uterine endometrium, making it unsuitable for implantation. So either it can also cause decreased thickness in the endometrium, or not completely letting it form, and so on. There are various possible ways in which the endometrium is kind of altered, so that it is no more suitable for implantation process of the zygote. So these oral pills, they can act from any of these mechanism. The most commonly used birth control pills, or these oral pills, they contain synthetic progestin, that is synthetic progesterone molecules, and estrogen to check the ovulation, right? To check the ovulation, as in to keep it in control, and also to keep the conception in control, rather to avoid it. There are few very well known and marketed products in the Indian market, especially. So the pill, which is called as Maladi, I don't know where this name has come from, but it is very well known. Earlier days, when the like Doordarshan was there, they used to have lot many advertisement of this Maladi, which is usually taken daily, and the other brand name is Saheli, which is taken weekly. Saheli just has this a non-steroidal preparation, which is called as Centroman, and it has this high contraceptive value. That means it is not just like what you say, estrogen and progesterone combination, but it has this different molecule which is called as Centroman, and it has less side effect compared to this Maladi or regular progesterone and estrogen tablet. So what is exactly this Centroman? So for your reference, I have just kept this picture. How do they look like? You might have seen it sometime in the medical shop also, and they are usually coming in this kind of strip, where they are like 7 into 3 rows, and they are given here. I'm not sure of this black thing. I assume they are just the blank like blobs and nothing else. Or it could be the version of Maladi which has extra tablet, especially of the what we say vitamins and so on. It is quite possible that it is present in these days, which is taken during the menstrual phase. So that is also quite possible, but I am not sure about that part. So these are the Maladi and Saheli tablet pictures. So the Centroman is also known as Ormeloxifene, which is a reversible post-coital, that means after sexual intercourse or after the coitus, weekly taken oral contraceptive. The reason why it has to be taken only once in 7 days is because of its half-life, which is about 168 hours. So which approximately comes to around 7 days or so. Right, 25 sevens are, 24 sevens are, it's somewhere around 168 only, correct? So because of that, this half-life, that means until the drug molecule is active at the what you say, the physiological level. So that is the scent chromone molecule, and because its half-life is more, it needs to be taken only once a week or once in 7 days. And this was designed and developed by this Central Drug and Research Institute, CDRI, which is present in Lucknow. So that is one of the very premier institute in terms of pharmaceutical research in India. That is called as CDRI, Central Drug Research Institute. So this scent chromone, it acts by preventing the implantation of blastocyte. Earlier mechanism, whatever we had seen, they were true for progestin and estrogen combination, like these four mechanisms. Scent chromone has its specific way of acting on like avoiding the conception, that is by preventing the implantation of blastocyst. Now you know, when the cleavage of the zygote happens, it grows into blastocele and blastocyst, which is a group of cells with morula and that trophoblast surrounding it. And then it goes and implants into the endometrium after a certain stage, and that is what is being avoided or being targeted by the scent chromone, so it does not allow the implantation process. It is the only contraceptive which neither suppresses the ovulation nor it interferes with the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. Now, this axis refers to different hormonal secretion. Hypothalamus secretes your gonadotropin releasing hormone. These secrete your LH and FSH, and these ovarian will secrete your estrogen and progesterone. So this axis, once it is affected, it will ultimately affect the menstruation, ovulation, and all of it, right? And this drug does not act on any of the hormonal activities or any of these axes uh, to suppress like any of the reproductive process, but it just prevents the after ovulation, when the embryo is the zygote is formed. After that, this drug acts, so it has very specific target, and that is why it is commonly used nowadays more than your malady type of drug. Now if you look at this malady tablet, you can see there is this progestin derivative which is called as levonorgestrel, and this is the estrogen derivative which is called as ethinyl estradiol. Estradiol is one of the estrogen which is present in the body, and when you have ethinyl derivative of it, you know that triple bond with ethene. So when that molecule with estradiol is present, it becomes ethinyl estradiol. So that is just the structure activity of these compounds. So these are the two analogs present in malady. The scent chromone also has certain anti-estrogenic activity, and because of this anti-estrogenic activity, it acts on the endometrium, that inhibits the fertilized ovum for implantation, and it will hasten the transfer of ovum from the fallopian tube to the endometrial cavity. So like in the regular course of time, the ovum which is present in the fallopian tube will stay there until it fertilizes, then it forms morula, and then it comes down to the uterus and so on, right? That is a normal course of action. But when the scent chromone is given, it will propel that ovule from the fallopian tube down to the uterus. So even without fertilization, it will come down into the endometrial cavity, and then obviously it is not going to get implanted, because then it has not formed that chorion and that the finger-like projection to hold on to the endometrial wall and so on. So obviously it's not going to get implanted. So that is the general course of action of scent chromone.
Sir,
Yes.
so So you only either take Saheli or you take Maladi, or you have to take them together.
No, you take either of them.
So like if taking like Saint Chroman is so much easier, why do people even take Maladi?
See, these are brands. Brands in the sense they are developed by certain companies to promote their own agenda and to make own profit. So usually, and also if you look at this, this was designed much earlier, and Saheli came into picture much later. I guess Saheli was like identified sometime in 1984 or 86, if I'm correct. But these molecules, they have been there since 1960s also. So, and that is when Saheli is relatively new. It may not be that famous, and so on. But people, like whosoever get the right choice, they usually prefer Saheli. Imagine you have to take 7 tablets in a week. Instead of taking one tablet, you would always prefer one tablet a week. So it just depends. And
Okay.
most of the people, they are unaware of these brands because they usually refer to a doctor, and doctor, it depends on doctor which brands he prescribes to people.
So like in government hospitals, so like I think they still use Maladi.
Yeah, like rather they use both. I'm not sure of Smith, like obviously I don't know much about it, but I suppose they should use Saheli as well.
So like uh, I heard like I heard of Maladi before. Like like in government hospitals they still use it. So like shouldn't they kind of have some reason to use this? Like I mean, shouldn't they avoid it completely then?
Not necessary.
Maybe one of them is more costly than the other,
That is
and
one.
they're trying to minimize costs. That's why they're using the other one.
Yeah, that is one reason as well. And like I said, uh, like if it is used in ideal conditions, both of them, they should not show any side effect. But the sometimes it is required that some of the women, they have different kinds of physiological disorders within their reproductive structures. So in those cases, this malady type of tablets, they would be more beneficial, right? So that they can also correct the that defective course of action, uh, either in the menstrual cycle or so on. So that way also it is. This is like kind of centromin is kind of synthetic molecule, which is not related to your hormone as such, but it performs this hormonal action, as in it performs the action which is otherwise performed by hormone, to prevent this implantation. Okay, so I guess I have again kept some article here. If you want to read on that, you can check. It's more about the centroman molecule and so on, like its course of action and everything related to. So that was a few of the oral pills. Now, the for combined oral contraceptives, that is in combination, estrogen as well as progesterone. That is what is combined oral contraceptive, and the progestin only method. That is only progestin being used as a contraceptive. The main mechanism of actions are including this one, which we had also seen earlier, inhibition of follicular development. And this goes back to the fact that that graph, if you remember during menstrual cycle, which we had seen, if the levels are not at the appropriate like level, then it is going to mess up with the whole of the menstrual cycle. So that is when if you add additional of these progestin or estrogen combinations, it is going to ultimately affect that whole of the axis, which is this hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. Yeah, axis in this case doesn't literally mean an axis. It just means the course of action taken by one or other organ in combination. Further, it is also involved in the alteration of the cervical mucus to inhibit sperm penetration. So in general, for hormonal methods, particularly low dose progestin only products and the emergency contraceptive pills, they have effects on the endometrium, and that could affect the implantation later. So this is also in a way trying to say that continuous usage of these contraceptive pills, they can affect the reproductive structure. Imagine you are adding a little extra hormone to not allow the endometrium wall to grow sufficiently, right? Or you are increasing the motility of the fallopian tube, or you are inhibiting the follicular development. The ovaries over the time will get used to that particular course of action, and there might be difficulty in the menstruation uh, after a certain while. So that is why these always needs to be used in consultation with doctor, because it has to be checked for the most other factors related to the menstrual cycle. Uh, so that is the overall methods of contraception. One more, rather few more ways of contraception in these contraceptives. So in contraceptives here, we had looked at the oral contraceptive pills. Now in oral contraceptive pills, we had different options of this centroman or malady like tablet, or the estrogen progesterone combination. Now after oral contraceptive pills, that was the oral. Now this is the injection based method of the contraception. So progesterone alone or in combination again with the estrogen can also be used by female as an injection deep into the muscles of the upper arm. So nothing but, instead of taking a tablet orally, you can also get an injection into the intramuscular region of the upper arm, and their mode of action is again similar to your what we had seen in terms of pills, but it just the effect is for longer duration. Now why is the effect longer duration? Usually intramuscular injections, they are oil based. Oil based does not mean they literally have oil, but they have certain amount of oil in the injection preparation, so that the release of the drug from that muscular site is slower down. If it is water based, our whole body system is water based, and it will allow the complete drug release immediately. So that is when, if you want a very fast effect, you always get an intravenous injection, because that is directly going into the bloodstream, right? If you get intramuscular injection, it goes slowly over the time into your blood circulation. So that is the benefit, and that is why it is effective for longer duration, that is contraceptive injections. Then there is this product which is called as Depo-Provera. It is the brand name for methoxyprogesterone acetate. Methoxyprogesterone acetate, this is also short form as MPA, and it is one of the derivative of progesterone. Because of this presence of methoxy group into the progesterone molecule, it is more stabilized, and it contains progestin, nothing but the synthetic progesterone. The injection is given once in 3 months. Because of this particular structure, it will keep releasing progesterone slowly over the period of 3 months. It will suppress the ovulation and thickens the cervical mucus to prevent the sperm entry into uterus. That is the mechanism of action for Depo-Provera. This is the brand name. And then third, rather the fourth type in contraceptive is subcutaneous implant. That is, within the subcutaneous layer of the skin, there is an implant which is kept, and it is also with the brand name called Norplant. Most convenient and most reliable contraceptive method, but again most convenient those who are afraid of needles and stuff. For them this may not be convenient, because it needs like a skin to be cut and then put the insert or the implant underneath the skin, and is needed once in every 5 years. So you can imagine, once you keep the implant for 5 years, you need not worry about this, but even for that once, you have to undergo a very minor surgery. The implant has 6 capsules which are inserted under the skin in the upper arm, and each capsule is filled with synthetic progesterone, which is released over the time, uh, across the 5-year period. So that is how these are the that is how the function of this subcutaneous implant would work. And I guess with that we finish. No, there is one more. Yeah, this is the last one. But actually
Sir, I have a question.
yeah.
For those implants, if suppose you're in a car accident or something and you get hit on the arm and then all the capsules explode or something, will you die? Won't you die?
No, you wouldn't die as such, but you will have certain side effects. So these molecules, no, like I said, you remember we always have the what you call it negative feedback mechanism. The higher the level of these molecules, it will create an impact on that hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis, and it will cause the reduction in the natural level of progesterone and so on. So that way you.
No, but it's like 5 years worth of progesterone in 1 second.
But not necessarily all of it will get absorbed, and all of see in body you have a threshold. Beyond that threshold, you can't really have any effect, right? So there are certain progesterone and estrogen receptors. Once they are completely occupied, you can't have more than that as an effect. That is the highest amount of effect. That is when I say, when the body was designed, it was designed so smartly that even if you add excess of progesterone, until and unless it goes and binds somewhere else by false binding, what is we call, then it might show certain side effects. But otherwise, like in general, there are always mechanism to take care of it internally. One mechanism is like there is threshold of this receptor. So that is one way of like preventing such disasters. And also these implants, they are also like you said, the situation that is again a very rare thing to happen. But usually like these implants, they are very well protected within certain chip or metal like structure, so that uh, any kind of physical injury does not really affect much to them. But in worst case, if it affects, there is already something by the body which is taken care of. But yeah, like again, the possibility of getting some severe side effect also can't be denied. It depends on the situation of that particular person, which is possible as well. And also this is not so commonly used method. Like I said, people don't prefer to have it throughout. Like imagine, no, like if this is the method of contraception, and if that couple gets a divorce, or they want to have a baby, second baby or third baby, or I don't know what not. So in those cases, you again have to go back to a physician or a surgeon to remove that implant. So that is again a little tedious process. These are like not widely used method. These are more like a bookish method, I would say. They are mostly used in the books, not in the like out in the society as such. Okay, so then I will go to the last part of these methods of contraception, that is emergency contraceptive. Now these are usually used again, the same progesterone estrogen combinations are used in injection format, or sometimes only progesterone, or the hormone releasing intrauterine devices, or morning after pills. They are used within 72 hours of the coitus, that is sexual intercourse, and they are very effective in emergency contraceptive. So let's say a couple like have unprotected sex, that is without any contraceptive, and they feel that it was the ovulation day or next to ovulation day and so on, then there is a chance that a woman might remain pregnant. So to avoid that, they usually have this within 72 hours of the sexual intercourse. The female has to take this injection to have a quick effect. And otherwise, if you are taking oral contraceptives or oral pills, then no need of taking this injection. But if that is not the case, then this injection is always better. And also in case of rape, where it is unwanted pregnancy, unwanted in the sense because obviously no one wants to have the child of a rapist, and that way it is also done for those cases. Again, from taking a consent from the woman and her parents if she is minor also. So that way these things are being done, and that is the emergency contraceptives.
So, like the normal contraceptives, how long do they take to show effect?
Uh, Not more than, I guess, like you mean in termination of pregnancy.
No, like avoiding pregnancy. Like,
So again, if you are taking the what you say, oral pills, they are always there in your body, so they are going to show effect immediately, not more than 24 hours for sure. Injections again very fast. Emergency contraceptives, they show effect within few hours.
okay.
Okay, so that is the these were the different uh, contraceptive method. Now the last part is the surgical method, and I guess you are aware of these two surgical methods as well. This is actually sterilization process. Sterilization means making completely like permanent infertility will be offered to that male or female. So it provides a permanent and sure shot method of birth control, and it is called as vasectomy in male and tubectomy in females. Vasectomy, this is nothing but the surgical removal of a part of the vas difference in the males. Both sides both sides vas difference which is coming from the testis, it will be cut. A small piece will be taken out and they will be tied. Now tied doesn't mean you tie it with a thread or something. These are surgical sutures, which are like again a thread like biodegradable material, and they will tie up this vas difference. So that is the vasectomy. A small incision is made on the side of the scrotum, like from either left or right side, or mostly from both the sides, and a portion of vas difference is removed. That is a very tiny one. Usually it is less than a centimeter or less than 0.5 centimeter, I would say. And then each cut end is ligated separately, so what you have seen in the diagram. And this will prevent the sperm to reach urethra, so the semen does not contain the sperm. So this, once these are tied, so whatever sperms are being produced in each of the testes, they cannot travel down ultimately to the epididymis and so on. Sorry, to the this bulbourethral region and so on, and then it cannot enter the urethra as such. But at the same time, the semen will be produced. That is, semen minus sperms will still be there, and that will be ejaculated out of the penis. So that is the method which is called as vasectomy.
So,
Except will be no sperm. Yes.
like, won't the like sperms accumulate there, like, in the vast difference?
Not really. So usually
So,
when,
but it's sure, right? Like, slowly it'll bulge and it'll kind of burst.
sorry, come again.
So, like if the sperms keep accumulating there, the vast difference slowly will start to bulge, right? And then kind of blast.
No, that doesn't happen. So when these sperms are continuously being produced, they are also continuously being degenerated over the time. So let's say it's the same way, like if you maintain what we call as abstinence period, like avoiding the sexual intercourse or avoiding the masturbation, any of these process when you don't do, that is called as abstinence. And when you follow abstinence for like literally long period of time, that way also they are going to be there, but that does not accumulate. Usually a testis has a mechanism when a sperm grows. uh, I don't know what is that time frame, but let's say after few days or few months, the sperms will be broken down and new sperms will take place of the older ones. So that is always done by the testis itself. So the sperms does not accumulate there. The process will stop completely if there are enough sperm. Once these sperms grow older, they will be replaced by the new sperms, and the older ones will go and metabolize. And remember, testis is still connected with the blood vessel. So all this metabolic waste, whatever is from the degradation of the sperms and so on, that will go in the blood circulation and ultimately out through urine. So that way, there is no accumulation. Okay, then the tubectomy method, it is the surgical removal of the small fallopian tubes in female, and the cut ends are again ligated, same like vasectomy, and this prevents the ovulated egg from entering the fallopian tube. So what you see in this diagram is the fallopian tubes. They are usually cut in like a small pieces taken out, and both the ends they are ligated, so that whatever ovule is being released from the ovary, it does not enter into the fallopian tube at all. And again, here also the mechanism is same. Like the ovules, they get, if they are not getting like getting entry into the uterus, they are being broken down by the fallopian tube itself, and then it goes out in the blood as a metabolite and so on. So that is the vasectomy and tubectomy method. So that's the surgical method part. Any question here? So I hope all the methods of contraception, they are clear. And how much time do we have? 13. Okay, we can finish some more part. So okay, so there are just few facts that I felt I should mention it here. So we call estrogen and progesterone as female hormone, but they are present in males, and testosterone we call as male hormone, but it is also present in female. So that way, individual sex hormone, they are present in the other sex as well. And that is why I felt like I should mention the function of these. So progesterone in male, so the adrenal glands and testes in males, they will produce progesterone. Now these are all molecules which are steroidal in nature. Steroidal as in they have this cholesterol-like backbone structure, and that is when these hormones can be produced. Usually these hormones in male, they decrease the libido and sex drive, and difficulty in the sexual arousal, that is the erection part, leading to the weaker erection and also erectile dysfunction. So that is when these hormones they play a role in all of these processes. Again, how and what, that completely depends on that hypothalamic testicular hypothalamic pituitary and testicular axis in males, and ovarian in case of female. So that is like a complicated mechanism of action. We need not go into those details, but I just wanted to let you know that there is progesterone in male. Similarly, there is estrogen in male, which takes part in the spermatogenesis process. Like in female, it takes part in the ovule formation, right? It kind of facilitates the process of formation of the oocyte. In case of male also, it does spermatogenesis, and also it has a part in the take part in the libido. I hope you have heard this term libido. It means the sexual desire, right? Or the sexual drive. We say, like, if someone is not interested in sexual intercourse, we say they have low libido, like general terminology. When they are not interested in having sexual intercourse, we say that particular person has very low libido. That is the sexual desire. Then testosterone in female, this helps in the growth, maintenance, and repair of the woman's reproductive tissue, and also the bone mass. So whatever it does in the male, similarly it functions in the female as well. But again, these hormones, when they are present in the opposite sex, they are present in very low amount, and not like the usual amounts which are secreted by that particular gender. So that is when they don't show. Otherwise, imagine testosterone present in the female at the same level like males, they will also get those secondary sexual characteristics like male. but that does not happen. And again, there are several other mechanisms to take care of it, but in general these are present in low amount. Again, there is one reference that I have added here which talks about these facts more in detail, so if you want to read, you can just click on it later. Now, the most important part, we have kind of 10 minutes, so we can try to finish some part of this. So there is something called as medical termination of pregnancy. Earlier, what we had seen was avoiding pregnancy, not to let conception happen. Now, if the conception or pregnancy has happened, how do we terminate it? That is what we are going to look at. So this medical termination of pregnancy, or MTP, is also called as induced abortion, because you create a situation which will cause abortion. So it is induced abortion. So intentional or voluntary termination of pregnancy before the fetus becomes viable, that is called as medical termination of pregnancy. Viable means, so usually the first trimester, that is I guess 12 weeks, yeah, it is down here, period safe for medical termination of pregnancy is safe during first trimester of pregnancy, that is up to 12 weeks. After that it becomes riskier. Second trimester you can still do it, but like I said, it is a riskier affair. And in third trimester, no one should even try it, because it is super complicated, and it might lead to the death of the mother as such. And the reason is because these tissues of the fetus, they are intimately associated with the maternal tissue. Like for that matter, that placenta and umbilical cord, both of these, they are very closely attached to each other. Also the whole of the blood flow, blood circulation, all of it is in continuation with both the bodies of mother as well as the fetus, and that is why it is a riskier business to do it in the later phases of pregnancy.
So,
Yeah.
so like there was some like law, right, that unless there are special circumstances, you can't like.
Yeah, so we are not going to talk in details about it, but just a brief about this is there. Medical Termination Pregnancy Act and so on. So we'll come to that. So yeah, so in general, if anyone wants to do like abortion, like induced abortion, has to be done within first 3 months of the pregnancy. The next 3 months are a difficult thing, and last 3 months should not really try it. But in some of the cases, people have done the termination around 6th or 7th month as well, right? Like at the end of 6 months, or at this during the 7th month as well. That has also happened, but then their extreme precaution has to be taken when someone is, and there has to be a very valid reason to do it. Otherwise, it is not allowed to terminate the pregnancy at all in 7th, 8th, and 9th month. 9th month, forget it, right? So in the third trimester of pregnancy, it is not allowed to terminate the pregnancy as such. So that is what the law says. Now, why it is done? Like either it is casual, unprotected sex. This is quite common amongst the young adults these days, which is unprotected and casual sex. Then the failure of contraceptive device during the intercourse. Like for example, a male is using a condom during sexual intercourse and that gets broken. And then the semen or the sperms which are being released or ejaculated, they get transferred to the, they get inseminated into the female genital tract. So in that case, there is a chance of this like pregnancy to happen. So, and that sometimes goes unnoticed over the time. So when the female does not get what you say, the menstrual cycle in the next month, then she realizes either it is because of the unprotected sex, or the failure of the contraceptive devices, or it is because of the some other malformation in the body. And then she has to undergo like a checkup, and there they might realize, okay, it is the pregnancy and she might want to terminate. So that is the process. Pregnancy due to rape, obviously, like I had mentioned, this is most unfortunate event if it happens, and that needs to be terminated again at the will of the female, and that follows the course of action. And threat to mother or even to the fetus. So there are certain complications which arises in the pregnancy or gestation period. So either it can be a like a genetic disorder, or there are blood clots forming either in the mother's body or fetus body, or any misdevelopment issues in the fetus. So any of these issues can cause a threat to the mother or the fetus, and that is why it needs to be terminated. So there are various reasons why it is being done. So there are these two acts. First one is the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, which was designed in 1971, and this was specifically to prevent unnatural maternal deaths due to the unsafe abortion by the untrained person. So in the earlier days, someone called Dai used to be there in the villages or even in some of the towns, and they used to go home to home and do the delivery of the female or the mothers, and that way it was not really safe, whether for like delivery or for abortion, either ways. Also, one of the crude method, rather not rude, the crude method is used, like you must have seen in some of the very dramatic Hindi movies, that Sasuma gives something to eat to the daughter-in-law, and then the daughter-in-law gets go through the abortion, right? So there is something called as like this uh, colostrum itself. When the colostrum is eaten during pregnancy, it creates, because of the lot of immune cells present in the colostrum, that is the first portion of the milk from the cow or buffalo or whatsoever. So that has lot of immune cells and antibodies and so on, that causes inflammatory reaction in the mother's body who is pregnant, and that causes the abortion. So that is like a crude method of doing abortion. So earlier days these were used. Also, lot of papaya, if a woman eats during pregnancy, especially during the earlier phases, it's also not healthy. Again, I assume it's because of the pepsin which is present in the papaya, that degrades the proteins and stuff. So there are several such what you call traditional product which are being used for home abortion. Yes.
So like you said something about like the milk that's given. So if the fetus dies inside the womb, then the mother's body digests it, or like does it kind of stay there and you have to surgically take it out?
So that is where the problem is. Now, if the fetus has grown uh, like sufficiently, let's say in the second trimester, that is 4th, 5th, 6th month, then fetus has very well developed, right? That means it has all the structures. It just starts to grow further physically and differentiate the cells internally. So if that is the case, then fetus might stay there. If it is the first trimester, then in that case, usually because the implantation will also get affected, or let's say, for example, the fetus is 1 month old, and or the embryo is 1 month old. No, sorry, the fetus is 1 month old, and then the endometrial wall itself will get broken because there is no further growth. So after a while, the female will bleed all the internal structures from the uterus. So that is again quite a possibility. But when it has grown sufficiently longer, like like I said, in the second trimester, then sometimes it's difficult that it will bleed like that. Most of the cases this has to be surgically removed. The other structures, they might just fall off, like endometrial wall and so on, but the grown fetus, which is still a ball of mass, may not come out naturally, like through the menstrual flow, and then in that case it has to be surgically removed. So that is again one of the difficult situation. In some of the cases, like some of the women, when their fetus has sufficiently grown, some of them they had seen some blob of mass which is coming through the menstrual flow and so on. So that way it works.
So, like in the older days, if like if they had to do cesarean and like the stomach was cut, so like wouldn't the person die?
Yeah, it used to, but not always, because see, when the earlier days, usually they did not prefer cesarean because they don't know how to do it. If at all it was done, mostly the mother used to die. If not, they used to put stitches, which can lead to infection and so on. So it depends totally on what was the situation used. But otherwise, like you can simply imagine the mother would die if it is done in a very unhygienic way. It might sound very cruel, but earlier days people used to break the umbilical cord using stones or using like scissor like device. So that's really really cruel.
Sir, but
Yeah,
cord from the mother automatically detaches, right?
sorry.
So the umbilical cord from the mother, from where it's connected to the mother, it like automatically comes off,
No,
detaches.
it doesn't. It has to be chopped off. So after the birth of the baby, it is still attached. So most of the cases, what doctor do is they chop the end at the umbilical cord that is close to fetus, and they put a clip there. And sometimes even the sutures are done there if required. Most of the cases it is not required, and even with the mother's body they have to put a clip. So until the everything that is present inside the uterus, that is placenta and whole of the structure of the amnion and chorion and all of it, has to fall off. Until then it doesn't, but it has to be cut physically. Okay, so that was the first act which was designed in 1971. But what happened after that was the medical termination was majorly done for after testing the sex of the fetus, and that is when the female feticide became a major issue. And then government enacted another law which is called as Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act, or it is also called as Regulation and Prevention of Misuse of this prenatal diagnostic technique in 1994, with another amendment that is additional to this law in 2003, and which prevent the prenatal sex determination. So none of the sonography techniques uh, they allow this sex determination, though there are few exceptions, like in case I don't know what should be the ideal cases to give this permission, but I know few cases, like the parents they had gone to the high court to take the permission, and then doctors had done it in those cases. So that is also possible. So I guess that was the amendment which was done in 2003, in addition to the original act, where people who are in need, again for some medical reasons for sure, if they have to check the sex or the gender of the uh, newborn or the child, they can do so, but with proper permission from the high court, with all that affidavit and blah blah blah. So that is the process. You can read these act, they are freely available online in different copies. Oh, it's already the time. So let's stop here. We will talk about the I guess the next part that we are going to talk after this is infertility in males and so on, even in females, and then we will continue further from there.